So normally with these Appalachian Bigfoot Files videos, I try to keep myself out of it, but something I've been wanting to share for a while is an encounter or some kind of incident I had happen, and we're actually in the location where it took place. This is in the Green Mountain National Forest. All of a sudden, we both see and hear what sounds like something falling or landing near the tent.
Vermont is just extremely picturesque, and there's large skiing areas over there, and mountainous areas, and large wooded terrain, and very rural areas. So it's a really lovely place to visit, and it's a place that could inhabit a mystery for a very, very long time.
It's very dense. I want to say all too steep. Like the New Hampshire mountains are. They're more like rolling hills, very much closer to like the southern Appalachia, as I would reference to it. Very densely forested, plenty of food, plenty of places to hide. Definitely a place where something can be in obscurity.
So the state of Vermont isn't a very large state, and it's very low population compared to other states. But what's interesting about Vermont is it's one of the most forested states in the U.S., and it has a mountain range known as the Green Mountains that runs basically from north to south, all the way from the Canadian border down to its border with Massachusetts. So it's unique in that way, whereas it has mountains that just run through the entirety of the state and kind of make up the spine of Vermont. And what's really cool about that is you have multiple long-range hiking trails that run through those mountains. You have a good chunk of the Appalachian Trail that actually runs through the southern part of Vermont and the southern part of the Green Mountains, and you have the Long Trail, which runs all the way from basically north to south, south to north, whichever way you're looking at it. Now, the Green Mountains, despite running from north to south through the entirety of Vermont, actually has a very large section of it that's part of the Green Mountain National Forest, which is divided up into two sections. You have a southern section, which is kind of near the Bennington and Glastonbury area. That's an area that's become very well known as the kind of Bennington Triangle. There's a lot of Bigfoot stories in that area, other weird paranormal stories and history, abandoned ghost towns, missing people. There's a lot that's entailed in the Bennington Triangle sort of story, but that's the southern part of the Green Mountains. You have town of Bennington and Glastonbury and all this kind of stuff in that area. And you have a second section of the Green Mountains, which is a little bit further north, which comprises the central part of Vermont, kind of from Rutland up to kind of near Stowe, Vermont. And you have a lot of ski resorts and ski areas pretty much throughout the course of the Green Mountains. But again, only two of the sections of the Green Mountains, the central and southern sections, are part of the Green Mountain National Forest, whereas other parts further north are not.
Moose, for example, are one of the largest mammals that is cataloged. So in that case, when you're out there, you don't even see them until you're right on top of them. It's that densely forested. So it's only logical that something about the same size, be it a more intelligent creature, can keep itself hidden if it wanted to.
In fact, if we talk more along cryptozoological nature. The catamount is a cat creature, a cougar, a puma, a panther, and you can recognize these creatures because the tail is generally longer than the body. And if you see a creature like that, that's the only thing it can be. And so sometimes we have black panther reports as well, which aren't supposed to be, indigenous to this area at one time or not. The catamount is supposed to inhabit, was supposed to inhabit Vermont, and then it was killed off and so forth. But we get reports constantly of catamount sightings. And so it's hard to believe you could kill off anything entirely in Vermont. So the catamount sightings are interesting because they're sighted on a continual basis, and they're just not recognized by the wildlife authorities, even though they will discuss the sightings that have been made. My uncle was a colonel, a full bird colonel, and a doctor at the Mayo Clinic, and he had a house in Pulteney, Vermont. And he had a sighting of a catamount in broad daylight crossing his yard. He filmed it with his cameras. They took snapshots of it. There were friends with him that saw it as well. And when he contacted the wildlife authorities in Vermont, they said, there's no catamounts. The only catamounts are mascots for the sports teams. So that was the official reaction to it. So you have credible witnesses, outstanding evidence, and yet they just ignore it.
I'm aware of Bigfoot sightings and encounters and stories going back in Vermont over the years throughout the course of the mountains. And I mean, all across the state, but in this case, we're focusing specifically more on the Green Mountains, where you have sightings, of course, clustering in that southern section, in the central section, as well as in the northern parts.
So we even have some rich history here from the New York Times. There was a front page story from Pownal, Vermont, of this short, 5-foot tall, hairy creature that was sighted by hunters in the 1870s. And the hunters were so upset that they ran out of the woods in fear of this creature. And yet that's a very typical description of a bipedal, hairy, looking like an ape, walking like a man type of creature that's cited to modern days. So this was actually a front page story in the New York Times.
So this is an editor's note/interjection. I just really wanted to share this because I thought it was super cool. As I was editing this episode, Paul mentions this New York Times article, and I actually tracked it down. It's from 1879, and I want to read the whole article for you. A wild man of the mountains. 2 young Vermont hunters terribly scared. Pownal, Vermont, October 17th. Much excitement prevails among the sportsmen of this vicinity over the story that a wild man was seen on Friday last by 2 young men while hunting in the mountains south of Williamstown. The young men described the creature as being about 5 feet high, resembling a man in form and movement, but covered all over with bright red hair and having a long straggling beard, and with very wild eyes. When first seen, the creature sprang from behind a rocky cliff and started for the woods nearby. When mistaking it for a bear or other wild animal, one of the men fired, and it is thought wounded it, for with fierce cries of pain and rage it turned on its assailants, driving them before it at a high speed. They lost their guns and ammunition in their flight, and dared not return for fear of encountering the strange being. There is an old story told many years ago of a strange animal frequently seen along the range of the Green Mountains, resembling a man in appearance, but so wild that no one could approach it near enough to tell what it was or where it dwelt. From time to time, hunting parties in the early days of the town used to go out in pursuit of it, but of late years no trace of it has been seen, and this story, told by the young men who claim to have seen it, revives again the old story of the wild man of the mountains. There is talk of making up a party to go in search of the creature.
So, I mean, obviously we've heard the stories about the Bennington Triangle. One of the most famous triangles in the U.S. There's a story about people going missing, through those areas, a bear supposedly squeezing someone to death, a hunter. Very bizarre stories that go through there. And as you and I both know, we know quite a few people from that area that have also had encounters. It truly seems like a Sasquatch dominated triangle compared to some of the other triangles, like the Bridgewater Triangle, that are more paranormal, or ghosts, demons, cults, and such.
So just tell me a little bit, because I know you've done a couple things in southern Vermont.
Yep, up in the Bennington area, and I did one out towards Brattleboro too. But the Bennington South is where we focused on, because nobody was covering that area. And that whole border along the Hoosick River, along the Hoosick Mountain Range, along the Catskills, and it's all tied in together. They're coming through there. They're absolutely coming through there. More reports come out of that area than anywhere in Western Mass. And every time I find a new one, I'm not surprised at what's being told of us. And sometimes Dave will do the interview, sometimes I'll do the interview, and then we'll re-interview the people, and it's the same stories over, and the same descriptions, and it's the congruences that keep me going. Just you feel like at least you're not wasting your time.
Have you heard of like the Bennington Triangle?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the missing people. And, people go missing all the time for things. People have medical events. I've never heard of somebody being kidnapped by a Sasquatch, or nobody's ever had an Albert Osterman experience out here. And if you don't know who Albert Osterman is, you're not doing your research. So do your research, because that's a heck of a story. I don't know if I believe it or not, but it's a hell of a story. But the missing people is certainly interesting. The paranormal stuff that's going on up there. I got enough stuff going on with Bigfoot to dive into the paranormal stuff, but when they're always coming together, you can't dismiss that either. So I've never had a paranormal experience in the woods. I've seen what may have been an orb, but I don't know if my mind was playing tricks on me. I don't dismiss it because I've talked to people, but I don't subscribe to it because I don't have any personal experience.
The ones that really stick out, and I've gone over with you, is what I like to call the maple syrup Sasquatch encounters. There was a person that reached out for me. I cannot share their identity due to their professionalism. I'll go ahead and say the town, but Searsburg, Vermont, right in the heart of the southern Green Mountains. They contacted me about living on a property with their grandparents at the time, that they still have in their family to this day, that they would see Sasquatches on a somewhat regular basis compared to other people. The first time that he came across these creatures was, I believe, in 1981, roughly, I'm pretty sure. And supposedly him and his grandfather went out to the abundant population of sugar maples out in the area. And they came across a male and a female Sasquatch allegedly taking a bucket full of maple sugar water, passing it back and forth and drinking out of it. And even years later, he reported hearing a groaning wail over the ridgeline. Supposedly he was familiar enough that he knew what these creatures were, what they sounded like. So the next day he ventured over there, and he described what he said as the delivery room. He found melted snow, tracks, and he described hair, blood, and what he described as possible afterbirth. But then he described the following summer he saw smaller tracks along with the bigger tracks. And then he finally saw it eating blueberries one summer with the mother as well, from watching from afar. Very rural, very sparsely populated area. Not a lot of people are going to be over there, except some of the old-timey folks, which it seemed like his grandfather seemed to be a mountain man, if you will. Of course, you have the photo that appeared on Finding Bigfoot that gained a lot of popularity of a potential Sasquatch picking up apples.
Yeah, I've investigated a few. I did a follow-up investigation with the sighting report that had occurred very close to where the Vermont trail cam photo was, and that was a guy who was into construction, and he spoke very briefly about it. Also talked to a couple of children who had sightings several miles away, a few years down the road. And here's, you know, a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old talking about what they were seeing, and they actually decided to throw rocks at it. And the little one decided to throw rocks at it, and the older one got mad at him, and they ended up running back home and telling their grandmother, and, you know, the grandmother attested to what they had said. You know, there is just so much going on. I also done a lot of follow-up investigations on historic cases, like the you know, there was a sighting on Bird Mountain on the ski lodge where a family of them was seen in the springtime walking across the, you know, where the slope would have been. There have been reported sightings by Professor Warren Cook, not necessarily, but Professor Warren Cook's daughter, who I've met, and we've been down where she had her sighting. We've been down to where the families, even further down the road as you get closer to Rutland, even to where they have had some sightings as well. The families, there's a family farm out there that they had a sighting of 4 or 5 of them. So there's been all sorts. There's another one that I've taken on the, I want to say the very, I got to think about it, because probably the west side of Rutland, just where the mountain range starts there. I took a report from a guy out there, and they're seeing something out there. And I don't ever get the feeling that they were pulling my leg at any given time. Matter of fact, the most amazing thing is that when I was out there investigating that one in West Rutland, you wonder how rural it is out there. I actually got a picture of a porcupine in the middle of the day. And they're typically nocturnal. And so it's just, the area is just, I mean, I've been out here not 4 miles from here on the other side of this river, and conducting an investigation, and I'm walking around and I'm looking down and I see moose tracks. We've heard sounds, and the beautiful thing is we've been able to identify some of them, the eastern screech owl, which we don't get too much on the southern part of Washington County, but we're close to Vermont, and they're indigenous to Vermont, and sure enough, we were on the Vermont side and got this eastern screech owl.
Back in April of 1992, there was a sighting in Vermont with 3 boys, and they saw this creature standing in this wooded area, and they were in the woods, you know, playing around like boys usually do, and they ran off because they were so scared of this sighting of this, you know, 6 to 7 foot tall creature with hair covered, and they just weren't expecting anything like that. And so they brought me to the site, and we were able to find tracks of where the creature had been standing, and they are uniform with this 14-inch track that's been found in several areas in Vermont. And so that was a sighting that took place in the 90s. If we go back to the 1980s, if we go back to 1985 in September, there was a major sighting in West Rutland, Vermont. And that involved multiple witnesses who heard this creature making these shrieking sounds and witnessed the creature as it was throwing rocks or pebbles against a building. Now, that's a characteristic that wasn't widely known back in the 80s, but has become more known now. And so we have these witnesses that were able to actually cast 3 of 6 impressions in a gravel road of the creature as it ran by. So that's a mass sighting that took place that had all the characteristics: track find, vocalization, and actual eyewitness sighting. And so that was a great sighting that took place in the West Rutland area in 1985. This is a bridge, believe it or not, in Vermont, considered to be in Chittenden. And so the guy comes down for the state there and he takes a picture of the bridge. When he does, this is in the corner. We went to that area and it's about 8 foot, whatever that image is. Now it could be a shadow. And it was pretty rugged terrain to get in there. Mosquitoes, it was miserable.
Yeah,
and we got there and the exact spot, that would be about 8 foot that image is. But I don't know if it's a shadow. Could be.
Now, I know you have another interesting encounter that's a little bit further north in the Green Mountains, right? Could you tell me a little bit about that one?
Yes, so again, cannot mention who the person is. I'm not going to describe who they work for because it's very traceable in that way. But when this person was making their routes, they were going, I believe, westbound out of Robertson, Vermont. And as he was a few miles in, he saw a creature with green eye shine. And as he went by it, some snow splashed up and it raised its arm to cover, but he never saw it again. Now the same individual had another encounter in a different area of Vermont, and basically he described it as a reddish brown haired creature violently shaking a tree sapling up on a hill. Not much known besides that. Now, he did say that another one of his colleagues had an encounter over on Route 75 that sounded almost exactly to the second creature that he describes with the reddish brown hair.
Interesting, and that's also, part of the Green Mountains, right?
Oh yeah. Very easy to get through there. As you know, it's super densely forested. Not many roads going through there, and it's a dead zone for cell service. Not many people go through there or want to spend much time there, at least nowadays.
So normally with these Appalachian Bigfoot Files videos, I try to keep myself out of it, maybe be present with some questions I might ask. If I'm interviewing somebody, I try to keep it to local researchers in the areas I visit, witnesses, that sort of thing. But something I've been wanting to share for a while is an encounter or some kind of incident I had happen, and we're actually in the location where it took place. This is in the Green Mountain National Forest, kind of in the central section. There's a lot of bugs out here, so bear with me. But this is the central section of the Green Mountains, and we're not very far from, multiple big hiking trails. There's a lot of territory. I just heard something behind me there crashing through the brush, so got to keep your head on a swivel out here. But to get back to my story, this is an area of the Green Mountains where we're very close to multiple congressionally designated wilderness areas, among other things around here. And this is a dead-end campsite. And this is where in 2021 I was with a buddy of mine, and we had kind of an unusual incident happen here one morning as we camped here the night prior. And I'm going to run through the sequence of events, and I'm going to intersperse some of my footage from the moment as well as audio and that kind of stuff. Okay, so basically August of 2021, I'm out here on a trip to upstate New York with a friend of mine, and we just happened to stop in this location. It was an area I was made aware of before. No Bigfoot related reasons or anything like that. We just decided, hey, let's overnight here. My brother had actually recommended this part of the national forest, and there was some great dispersed camping sites where you can just drive down these dead-end roads and basically hit, you know, a beautiful little site like this. So we're out here. It was like a Friday night maybe. We drive out here. We parked in this spot. We set up a tent basically right over my shoulder there in that direction. We had set up a tent. We didn't put up the rain fly or anything. We just put the tent up itself. And it was already dark by the time we got here. And so we made a little fire. We kind of stayed up for a bit. We were getting up pretty early to leave in the morning, so we didn't hang around for too long. But we decided that night, hey, you know, what the heck? Let's do some knocks. And we also put up what's called a pheromone chip. So those pheromone chips, you know, they're Sasquatch pheromone chips. They were developed by, I believe, Doug Hychek and Dr. Greg Bambanek and some other folks. And they're essentially, you take human and gorilla bodily odors and they're mixed together. It's really unpleasant. I have to keep this jar of this stuff like in my basement so it doesn't stink up parts of my house that I don't want smelling like this very putrid kind of like dirty gym bag kind of. It's really unpleasant, and it lingers and it sticks to things. I have it triple bagged and it still just smells really bad. But I thought, hey, let's just put up one of these pheromone chips. So we put up, basically we walked into the woods right behind me over here and hung it on a tree, kind of left it there. We thought, hey, you know what, let's see what happens, right? Are these things worth anything? I think that was one of my first or second times ever using the pheromone chips. So then we walked down the dirt road that basically brings us into camp here with like a bat and just hit a bunch of trees. I was very aggressive and I was just hitting all sorts of stuff on my way. You know, just bang, 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 just on anything. I just thought, hey, let's see what happens, right? I know a lot of people complain about, oh, the knocking, does it even do anything? I've had very few times where it's elicited something, but I thought, hey, let's try it, right? Why not? So we did that, and then we kind of started settling in for bed. And again, our tent was right over my shoulder here on the ground, and you know we had the fire going a little bit, but it kind of died down. We never put a rain fly on the tent. We just kind of left it because it was a very clear night. We could see the stars, and it was absolutely amazing. So it must have been around 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning, and just kind of laying there, and I am woken up by what sounds like 3 distinct knocks, just kind of knock, 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 as far as I recall. And I kind of sat up for a second, and I noticed the audio recorder I had hanging in the tent was dead. The battery had died. So I thought, oh, great, of course I didn't catch that. So I turned it on, and there was still a little bit of juice left. Sometimes when it's really low battery, the Zoom H1Ns that I use, they'll just die, but you'll get maybe 20, 30 more minutes of juice once you power it back up. So that's what I did. And then my buddy got up for a minute, went to the bathroom, came back to the tent, and you know, kind of laid down again. We were both just still sleeping. I mean, it was really early in the morning. And then we hear this kind of loud sort of knock in the distance. And immediately kind of turned to each other and said, did you hear that? Yes. And we confirmed that we'd both heard that. And that's where things got a little bit unusual. So we basically sat up in the tent, and you know, we were kind of getting our stuff together, ready to get out. And we could see everything again because there was no rain fly. Here's something moving back there. So we had no rain fly in the tent. We basically just had, you know, complete unobstructed view. And as we're getting our stuff together, all of a sudden we both see and hear what sounds like something falling or landing near the tent, kind of the area of the grass in front of the tent. You see basically from the hill behind me, there was like an arch pattern, what looks like debris flying through the air, hitting stuff on the way and kind of crashing on the ground right in front of our tent. And it wasn't directly on the ground, it was in like the trees and the brush right in front of our tent outside of the little flat area where the kind of the little campsite is. And the first time it went on, we kind of just sat up and we're looking, okay, this is kind of weird. And then it kept happening. And it would happen every 20, 30 seconds. And it happened 5 or 6 or 7 times. I don't exactly know. I don't recall the exact number of how many times it happened, but I have it all on audio. We're kind of just sitting there because you can almost see from up on the hill. It looks like something's flying down, coming at us and landing right in that area right in front of us. And it was kind of unusual. And we're looking up at the trees, is there some kind of a squirrel or something? But it was extremely loud for what it was. I thought it was a little unusual. So we basically, got our stuff together, and this was still going on, got out in the woods, grabbed some stuff and ran into the woods, try to see if we could see anything. But there was nothing else. We may have heard another knock-like sound, but behind me up here, there's a large grove of trees, pine trees, and it gets up, and there's an old logging road, and there's just a lot of space up there, and you can move a lot quieter. And it is so thick here in the summertime. This is about what it would have looked like back there in 2021. That was in August. This is now in July, so very similar time of year. I mean, I can't see 5-10 feet into the woods up here. I can just barely see where that pine grove up there is. So can I say something was throwing stuff at us? Absolutely not. But when you listen to the audio, you can kind of hear it. And, we weren't really filming at the time. I think we maybe got a picture or two because we were just sitting there in the process of getting out of our tent to be able to go into the woods and explore and investigate maybe the knock or whatever it was that we were hearing. So it definitely caught us off guard. I'm not claiming it was a Bigfoot or anything like that, but the noises were pretty loud. And there's been certain times where I've tried to rationalize it away and say, oh, it was probably just a squirrel knocking some debris down. But then you really take a listen to some of the thuds and some of the crashes, and it kind of doesn't sound like what a squirrel would be capable of, at least to me. basically, we've got the pheromone ship a little bit of ways in the woods over there, but this is around the area where we were seeing stuff fall from. So, you know, I was right in the tent, and I could see right through into here. That's where the stuff was falling. I mean, we saw it coming down, and up in that area, that's where that grove of trees is, where it's pretty clear up there, and you can walk a lot quieter in that area than you can through some of this brush. But we've looked the area, tried to see if we can find tracks or anything, and nothing. I mean, and then there's almost a little path here. I mean, it's possible this is a little hiking trail, but it's super grown in. Definitely game trail, but you can see this spot, you know, just it's a dead end kind of area. Goes right over here. So this is the area where we had the pheromone ship. Here it is up in the tree. Ooh, you can smell it. Oh. So yeah, we had it up there. So I mean, that is, look at that area up there. That's also an interesting area. And I've been back to this site many times since then. We've tried to recreate that exact kind of encounter to no luck. We've investigated the grove of pines up there, and we found tons of moose scat. There's definitely a game trail. There's all sorts of critters here. I mean, this is a very desolate area. Again, literally a wilderness area starts right up there. You know, one of those designated national forest wilderness areas. So I don't know what to surmise about what it was, but we were both kind of confused in the moment. And, you know, I did a recreation where I had somebody actually go up near that grove of trees and throw rocks and different types of debris down. And I'll play a segment, including that. Audio's rolling. All right, this is a test of recreating the throwing incident, Vermont, Green Mountains. Today is October 10th, 2021. We're going to try out and recreate this thing that happened. Audio recorder is approximately where it was. I just want to show this to the camera. Our tent would have been here. We were here. That is the area where the things were coming in. So we have somebody in there now. You ready? So let's start out with the 3 rocks. I want you to just throw one of them first, and then I'll give you the prompt for the second one and then the third one. So
Where exactly towards you?
So directly towards me, as close as you can get in this area right here in front of me.
Okay.
That's where they were landing, and it was like an arch pattern. So I would recommend maybe underhand throw.
Okay.
And it was a little thicker here in the summer because of the leaves. But I'm gonna shut up, and then I'll give you a 1, 2, 3, and then whenever you're ready, throw it. Okay, ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Go for a second, and then just do the third after that. Like, give it 10 seconds. Yep.
All right, ready?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there wasn't any rolling. They were definitely getting closer. Okay, so those are the 3 rocks. Now Oh, you got a 4th. Okay, go for it. Okay. All right, now let's try sticks, but try throwing them up even higher. Try overhand this time to get them higher, because I remember them coming a little higher and then down.
Okay.
So, yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right, ready?
Yep. It was a lot closer than that.
Not sure how good those throws were.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, it was clearly it was a lot louder, and it felt like it had more force coming through. I mean, how good are people at throwing stuff through trees usually? I don't know. But, all right, well, we got it. Thanks, man.
Yep.
So you can make up your own mind about what it was that we heard. Because that morning after we heard what we heard and witnessed the debris and all that kind of stuff, there wasn't really anything else that we encountered. And we basically left the site, and I didn't come back for another few months. And when I did, there wasn't much else really. I tried to recreate again the sounds, and we tried to recreate the same scenario. Didn't really have anything going on. So that's about that. Interesting as it is, I can't say it's anything definitive, but I distinctly remember seeing what looked like debris kind of in an arch pattern coming through the trees, and it was all landing right in front of where our tent was. Now, we looked for the debris afterwards. We couldn't find it. I mean, there was all sorts of sticks and branches and stuff. We thought maybe rocks, but when we tried the rocks with the recreation, they just didn't sound the same. They sounded a lot more like they just swooshed through and didn't hit a whole lot. Throwing branches seemed to be, or like pieces of wood seemed to be more analogous to what we heard. But again, I can't really say what it was. Maybe it really was just a squirrel playing in a tree. I don't know. Again, you'll have to be the judge of that. But I decided to come back to this location all by myself. I'm going to spend the night here, do a little bit of investigating, just kind of play it cool, not do anything crazy, but I will try to deploy the pheromone chip in the woods here and then do some knocks before I go to sleep and leave the audio recorder out, as well as some thermal surveillance near the pheromone chip. Maybe it'll get something, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a bear run through camp. It's really hard to say, but that's kind of the plan. That's why I decided to come back out here. So hopefully it'll prove to be an interesting night. It's just about getting towards dusk right now, so I have a little bit of time before it really gets dark, so I can kind of set everything up and get myself ready. I might do a fire in a little bit. The bugs seem to be dying down, so I'm not sure if I'll do a fire, but I'm definitely going to hang out here in camp and just kind of monitor things as the evening goes by. Okay, so here is the site. I'm gonna run through kind of where everything was set up and where we were. We had our tent right here. So basically right in this little grove of grass, looking out into here. Now you try to see anything up there. There's the fire pit right there. I had placed the pheromone chip in the woods over there. So here's where we're sitting, or here's where we're laying. Basically laying this way, looking up into there. The debris and the noises sounded like they were landing in this little area here. And we searched extensively and could not find anything in here. There's a little bit of a kind of creek that runs through here now. That was here, but it was dry that year when we had this stuff happening. So yeah, essentially right back here, you can maybe see it a little bit up into there. That's where the grove of the pine trees starts. Again, it's hard to tell. You can see some of the pines up there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Very thick. And as I mentioned, the site basically just, there's a little bit of a long road to get down there, but the site dead ends here. So if there were a location, this would certainly be a great one. Maybe see into there a little bit too. Let's get these guys set up. Okay, these are the pheromone chips in question. So you'll see they're in one layer of bag, in another layer of bag. God, I can already smell it. Into another layer of bag. Whew. Into another layer of bag, and they're just going straight through all of that. And then the actual chips are also within a bag within a bag. This is like a nesting doll situation. So here are the pheromone chips themselves. Again, and it's double jarred too, I should add. Whew. So here's our jar. Here's the actual pheromone chip jar. I'm going to get myself one of these. You can kind of see what they look like. I've been using them before, but it's basically a tab. Hangs. I've used these before in videos, haven't used them in a while. God, that stinks. All right, I'm going to put it in there. Okay, here it is. It stinks. Hanging it right there at the edge of camp. Hopefully that smell will waft. That's the goal, at least. I really just like to emphasize how much these things stink, man. They're really not pleasant at all. Trying my best not to contaminate myself here with this stench. Difficult to do. In one jar, into another. Wow, that bag is now ripped. Great. All right, we've got it mostly put away. It's just gonna sit here back of the truck. For now, just the general air. It smells like that pheromone chip. I mean, it's designed to be a fishing or a hunting lure, so you know it has the ability to cling to everything. I swear it smells worse over here. Just that odor is just clinging right here at the back of the truck. I shouldn't have done that here. But the idea is hopefully something decides to come by and check it out. Or is annoyed by the smell. I don't know. I mean, we have no idea realistically if these things are effective or not. Some people claim they are. I've had, again, my weirdest experience I had while using them was here at this location. So what do I know? Pretty much immediately going to set up my audio recorder, just have it rolling. I probably should have already had it out, but just using that basic Zoom H1N. Going to have it set up and hopefully run all night. So right now I'm just going to keep it out and just put it on top of the truck. Later I will put it in a dry bag and probably hang it in a tree for the duration of the night. It just really depends. I don't think it's supposed to rain much tonight, but you never know. Starting to get dark, but you can just see how incredibly thick it is in these areas. It is so hard to see 15 feet past immediate field of sight. Very quiet. Bugs have all gone away, which is nice. Here's the basic camp setup. Got my string lights hanging here. That just looks cool. I'm gonna actually sleep right there in the front of the truck. Maybe hopefully that'll encourage something to get a little closer. Get this whiff of the pheromone chip. Obviously, I don't know. It'd be really cool to have some kind of animal walk through camp. Bear, I mean, moose would be pretty wild, but you never know. I'm gonna figure out where exactly I'm gonna put the surveillance thermal camera. Probably on the back of the truck, facing that way. Now I'm just gonna play some music on my Bluetooth speakers, eat some leftover pizza, and just kind of chill out. Maybe sound of music will provide some curiosity for something that's out there. I'm just kind of taking it easy and doing what normal campers do. I was starting a fire, but there's not a lot of dry wood around here, so I'm just going to kind of keep it low-key and keep it to the lights tonight and just kind of take it from there. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next little while. I'm not going to be able to record on the camera here for music, copyright reasons, but I will have that audio rolling in case something happens. I will stop the music, of course. Just finished up playing some music. Extremely quiet. I'll sit and just listen for a little bit of the audio going before I call it a night. Try to do a few knocks perhaps, and then call it a night from there. Alright, I got my thermal surveillance unit. Little thermal camera. Got it pointed straight down this road. So hopefully anything that walks by here will be caught on camera. That's the idea, at least. See it right there. The lights on right now just to kind of help me illustrate the direction. I'm gonna turn in for the night. It's about 6:30 a.m. Pretty uneventful morning. Haven't heard anything. I mean, I've heard a few loud movements throughout the brush here. Could be debris, could be any animal. Got a woodpecker here outside of camp, but gonna check the overnight audio, check the thermal. Thermal appeared to run all night, so it'd be really cool if we got some critter walking up the road here, or maybe even crossing it. I'll have to see if there's anything on there. But I didn't hear much. But hopefully the audio has a different story. But it's a beautiful morning out here. This is just like it was those few years ago when we woke up and had that stuff falling and crashing right in this area behind us. But I haven't heard anything similar to that yet, or at all, on this particular trip out here. So these are my early morning, still half awake thoughts for you. packing up to get out of here, and I just heard a very loud crash coming from this direction. Could be anything. Moose, debris crashing, but it was pretty loud. Maybe kind of stop for a second.
Realistically speaking, I mean, between New Hampshire and Vermont, there's a lot more population density opposed to the other side of Vermont where it's on the New York border that connects to the Adirondacks. As you know, the Adirondacks is an absolutely massive, massive area. It's bigger than, White Mountain National Forest easily, the Green Mountains. Not quite as big, as like the main area, like all combined, but it's still extremely large, extremely uninhabited, sparsely, populated with any human presence, besides the occasional hiker, maybe some tourist here and there. But for somewhere that's that large, there's plenty of places to hide, plenty of places to lay low. You and I both know we've been to spots that, no one really even goes to or even thinks of going to. People just don't venture off the beaten path.
The big fella here has been seen since the 50s. I actually took a report from a guy who had actually had a sighting in the 50s. And I think that the sightings will continue, regardless if the creature is discovered or not. It's alive and well out here. They're not around every corner. They're not around every bush. They aren't as numerous as any of the other animals that are here, but they are there. And I think, and I pray that someday that this mystery will come to a close.